and we are going to extend that session until 7:15.
The conference is no longer being recorded.
Sorry, I get 15 minutes just in case. We can build a break in there too.
Let's make sure that's safe.
Okay, I think I have to go back.
We're going to go over there, take a quick break, and we'll start at 7:20.
There's some inner peace to not knowing what's going on. I think the phrase is fat, dumb, and happy.
Yeah.
So we're looking at purchasing a building and moving public works. So we're going to need some, that's why I said I'm not sure how many I need. We're looking at just getting 2, but I think we're going to need more. So if there's a bunch on there, you don't, do we have to? Okay. Just a couple. Just a couple. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And the gal that, is it May? The last name May? Let me show you. So we have them hanging, and we didn't realize that they were on. Sure, they can find it real quick here.
Oh, nobody, we have to put the thingies out. Oh, that's what.
Want me to move? I will next time. Yeah, I didn't know, so I just.
Well, is it possibly double?
Maybe.
Yeah.
That sounds. Somebody passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So the family called and said, "Hey, we've got 2 pictures that we put on loan to you that are hanging in one of your buildings. We want that." So I'm like, "Okay, great, but we need to replace it with something." So
That's easy.
yeah, but then they. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know if they still live here.
They're up and out of court.
I was gonna say, I got the impression they weren't here.
They're not here yet.
Okay, whoever it was passed away in 2012, I
I
think
think
is
they're
what.
still.
Okay.
So do we have to stay down here? Or do we get
Next
to go back
meeting,
yet?
next meeting you'll be up top. We're back to normal.
So where are you purchasing the building, or can you say?
We're working on it right now, the one right next door to City Hall,
Oh.
tattoo shop building there.
Old, recreation
They're
center.
up there.
It's spruce now, so they're not reopening.
No.
She put the building up
Oh,
for sale.
Spruce, no, that used to be Marty's Slot Shop.
That's not shop.
Yeah,
A long time ago, and then it was the vet.
And then it was
Oh, the vet, yeah, that's right.
And then modeled it into the vet, but it used to be a salt shop. And then back behind, kind of there in the middle of the parking area there.
Yeah.
One time there was a
I did
well.
check the list of
And
executive session. Do you know where she sits?
Yeah, there was a well there.
She comes out of nowhere. Now, when did you cut through those? That was.
Because it used to be a livery.
Oh, okay. Where Jackson's at.
Somewhere in that area, I don't know exactly where, but I do know that they dug up and they found a bunch of guns and skeletons of horses. I don't know if they left the skeletons of horses there. Or the guns.
Oh, I love it.
Where does Gina sit? I was going to give her the checklist.
Oh, I just put it in the folder. She doesn't, she's online. Okay.
Okay,
I'll just put it in this folder.
perfect. Just you'll make sure she gets it so she has a record.
Okay. Who's speaking this evening? No? Okay. There you go.
There's some lag, I think, because we paused it and then restarted it, so it lags. So then, like, you'll be there and then you'll be over here.
Okay. Yes, you are, sir.
There was no sign-up sheets?
Yeah, but I'm in.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Plaza, look at you. Oh, I didn't hear you. I was too busy running my mouth. Okay.
Do I still have time or no?
What are you doing? Are you going fast?
I was just gonna run to my car and get my car.
You can. I'm going to call roll here in a minute, and then you can leave. I'll drag it out.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Oh, no. Record.
This conference will now be recorded.
Oh, that's not good. What's that? All right, good evening, everyone. It is 7:21. It is June 7th, 2021, and this is a regular meeting for the City Council of Woodland. If I can make sure that if you are online, if you can please stay muted while online, unless called upon during public testimony, that would be great. Those of you in the gallery this evening, please make sure your cell phones are silenced. If I can get you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. Graham.
Here. Oh, did you say Graham?
Wow, Mrs.
My
Rounds.
hearing's not
All right, here, let's start over. Somebody's very excited to be here this evening. Mrs. Rounds.
Here.
Good job.
Mrs. Graham.
Here.
Mrs. Holland.
Present.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Plaza.
Here.
Mr. Fredericks.
Here.
Mr. Chapman.
Here.
Carol, did you want to answer all this? We're all here.
I'll try to refrain myself.
A lot to say tonight, my goodness. All right. Everyone here is accounted for. We have no presentations or proclamations this evening, but we do have communications for items not on the agenda from the community. Is there anyone in the gallery that failed to sign up for items not on the agenda? And is there anyone online this evening for items not on the agenda? Mrs. Rabb, did you want to speak this evening?
I'm not. I didn't get a chance to look at the agenda or not, so I'm not sure if I'm hyping in on the right place about the 20 after 4.
Oh, okay. Nope, that will be on the next section. I'll call on you once we have our folks in the gallery finished. I'll put you down for items. Oh no, yes, no, you're right. No, you're in the right spot.
I was going to say, you
Wow.
got me worried there for
Wow,
a
I
second.
was worried myself.
I didn't know we were talking about that
Sorry,
tonight.
Mrs. Rabb, I pulled a Mrs. Rounds. I'm just very excited to get through the meeting, apparently. So no, this is that time. So go ahead. I'll give you 5 minutes.
Okay. So I actually just got to the building. But,
Are you outside?
yeah, I just came from the games.
Oh, did you want to come in and speak at the podium?
Please.
Come on in. Please do.
Makes it a lot easier.
Feel like the price is right, leading on our contestant.
I just want to say, living in a small community, we have the ability to do this. I don't know that Vancouver would allow this. Are we all confident with that? Come on in, Mrs. Rabb, when you have time. All right, I'll give you 5 minutes,
Okay. Do you need my name and address, all that stuff?
whatever you want to provide. We don't do that anymore.
You no longer have to give your address.
Okay,
Just your name.
perfect. I just came to speak about the 20 after 4. I've actually done a little bit of research. I've talked to the Cannabis Board. And the state's way of looking at things is that they give the licenses out, and it's up to the place of business to meet the requirements for the city, regardless of whether or not the city or county has allowed it. They give it out and they don't care and let the municipality deal with it. I know I personally don't have a problem with having those retail places. I have a problem with doing it illegally. Any other business they don't try it. And people who went against the state during COVID and racked up hundreds of thousands of dollars of fines for opening their restaurants. Meanwhile, the state does the opposite to the cities or counties when that. And I would prefer not to have any of the shops because it is not an innocuous drug. It causes white matter damage that's permanent. It causes memory problems and other things that are permanent for not even people who use it regularly. So it's not an innocuous drug, but it's a drug that we've used in the hospital for at least 2.5 decades under certain conditions. But I just wanted to come up and object to what's happening and make my voice known, as well as when I talked to the Cannabis Board, there are areas that they use deterrence, I guess, as fines, like the city of Woodland can, but some of them, they told me, actually threaten jail time to businesses that open up in their localities that are doing that. I have been to some of the planning commission meetings. I've seen people ask for code changes to go from like a residential, it was actually a residential area, but it's in an industrial area. They're the only one that's residential, and get denied because when they opened their business at their home originally, they didn't get a business license and then moved out of the county and then came and then were requesting to have that area changed for coding and got denied because of them not doing the right thing in the right way. And for someone who has to have the background checks, and you can't be a lawbreaker, and you basically come into the city and say, screw you, I'm going to do whatever I want, when your livelihood is based on you following the laws, shows me that you're not going to follow the laws. They haven't been following the law for the Cannabis Board because they have their front door open every single day, and that is against the licensing. So they're already not doing what's supposed to be done, and that's my opinion. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for stopping by, Whitney. You gonna stay for a bit?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else that is online for items not on the agenda? All right, seeing no one, moving on to items on the agenda. We have Miss Thoney in the gallery this evening.
Hi, Erin Thoney. You all know where I live. I'm here for the transportation plan. Point blank, I don't like it. 10 years ago, or over 10 years ago, when we were annexed in, we had to pay for a transportation plan, which was adopted by the city via a resolution. It was immediately deep-sixed and hidden, and I kept bringing it up to the staff saying, what about this plan? They acted like they didn't know about it. Then they kept bringing up other plans, which really make a dangerous potential intersection up at the Davidson Street crossing on the west side. This current plan also does the same thing. They said there's intersection improvements potentially planned on it. Well, that doesn't really do it. I live down there. I know how the traffic is. I know what it's like to sit on top of the railroad tracks with no place to go, and potentially a train could be coming down the tracks. The current plan that I saw on the southwest side is rather ridiculous, with some of the roads veering off. It cuts through different parcels at weird angles and would create rather unusable sections of it. Going through the Beaux-Arts property is really ridiculous. I understand the port's not real happy with the plan, and I'm not real happy with the plan. 5 years ago, when we wanted to lease a little piece of ground for a person to put a layout yard on and put in one toilet, we were told point blank we could not do anything until infrastructure study was completed. I've never seen any results from that infrastructure study, and for years, annually, I think this past year I missed it, I came and asked at the meeting, what's the update? Never got it. Since then, you guys have moved ahead with some developments that are significantly larger than just one little toilet, and disregarded that plan that was done when we were annexed, and we're not even being talked to. So whatever you're doing with your transportation plan, let it be known that the largest landowner in that southwest area is not happy. The board isn't happy. So I would suggest that you go back to the drawing board and maybe listen to the locals instead of being drawn by the bright lights of somebody from out of the city, to do it right and plan it right, so we don't create a dangerous interchange, especially at that Davidson Street crossing. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the gallery for items on the agenda? Anyone online for items on the agenda? All right, seeing no one. Moving on to agenda approval.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Frederick, seconded by Councilmember Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it. The time is now 7:32. We will be moving into a public hearing regarding Transportation Improvement Plan, which is action item C this evening on your agenda. The time is 7:32. We'll be in public hearing now. I have no one signed up in the gallery. Is there anyone in the gallery who failed to do so? Now's your opportunity to step forward. Seeing no one, is there anyone online for public hearing on the Transportation Improvement Plan? Seeing no one at this time. Aaron, do you want me to put you on the public hearing for your testimony this evening?
I didn't see that one.
No, that's fine. I'll go ahead and just transfer that over because I have a feeling that's probably, which is fine. All right, seeing no takers for testimony this evening, the time is now 7:33. We are out of public hearing. Moving on to reports of City Council.
I have no report.
Mrs. Rounds?
No, I have no report, except I went to graduations this weekend, but
Nice. Mrs. Graham?
I attended the Zoom meeting for the WQCC meeting that was held last week, and found it quite interesting and how it was handled, and to see that the school and the city and the board are working together. Attended the court ribbon cutting the other night, Friday afternoon, excuse me, down at their Orchard Park, which is a lovely area, so everybody should take their bag lunch and go down to the park and eat some time. I think it was very well attended, and it was interesting. It was nice to see people out being able to be sociable, conversing, and having a good time and sharing whatever they were all sharing. So, had ribbon cutting and cookies and water, so it was very good.
Nice. Mr. Chapman?
Well, this evening, it was nice to Mayor Finn, Councilmember Rounds, myself, and Councilmember Fredericks to play on the new piece of equipment that the fire department's got. Too bad we didn't have the keys, or we'd have took it for a drive, because there was nobody around.
I know
it's
Chief
pretty.
Jackson is on the line right now. I tried everything in my power to get that horn to honk, but I was pushing buttons, so
They
I
bled the air out of it. I couldn't do it.
when they turn on that rig, it might just go off like crazy. It's a nice rig.
Yes,
It's nice that they put it here in
very nice.
Woodland.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is something I did not want to help them pushing in, that one of the historic things they do for tradition. That's a big piece of equipment to be pushing.
Very expensive piece of equipment, yes. Anyone else? All right. Moving on to reports of standing committee. Public Safety Committee.
Public safety weekend this afternoon at 5:30. A presentation was done by Chief Kelly, and it was about the new laws affecting the budget. The chief explained many of the new laws affecting law enforcement. After the recent legislative sessions. Some of the laws impacted are use of force, police tactics, decertification, and many more. Chief Kelly will be changing Woodland PD policies to reflect those changes. Of note is Chief Kelly's proposal to the Public Safety Committee for body cameras. And more information will be coming on the costs and other factors to implement this technology. And our next meeting will be the first Monday in July.
All right. Questions for Mrs. Graham? Mr. Fredericks?
Not a question, but a comment. I think the council should consider adopting a resolution to put the Washington State Legislature on notice that we find that their action taken does not really protect the lives of law enforcement officers in our community. And I think it'd be appropriate that this body take up a resolution like that to provide notice to the Washington State Legislature that they need to be very careful on some of the language that they're crafting here. And I'm sure that there's already been some potential resolutions that may have been already drafted and adopted by other city councils in the state. Is that something that that we could direct staff to, or ask staff to come up with maybe some language on a resolution? Just some of the language really is concerning about officer safety. I think it really shines a light on we're going way too far the opposite way, so to speak, on some of these issues, and I think that it is something that we should send notice and ask the state legislature to take a look at again and reconsider some of the actions that they've taken. One of the actions that they've taken to me that is very concerning is if we have an officer-involved shooting, or we have something to where it requires an investigation could be done by a other agency. We now have this ability where the Washington Attorney General's office can now just come down and say, we're going to be in charge of this investigation. And it concerns me that we are going to be playing politics with an officer-involved shooting rather than doing what is just by not only the individual that was involved in that, but also the officer. And I just feel like we're going to have a mass exodus of police leaving the state, given the action that this legislature has taken. So it concerns me, and I think we should really be taking a look at it to send them a, hey, can you take another look at this? Are you sure?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fredericks. All right, moving on to Human Resources.
The Human Resources Committee meeting was canceled tonight due to the stuff going on at the fire department. So we will be meeting next on July 6th at 5:30.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to Chamber of Commerce, Mrs. Graham.
Chamber, just quick run through this. We're still open 7 days a week from 9 to 4. You can still come in and get the proper passes for your touristy things that you will want to be doing. Our golf tournament is the 20th of August. We're still looking for teams and sponsors and raffle prizes. And I am very happy to announce that starting tomorrow at 12 o'clock, the Woodland Chamber will be having our general luncheon meetings at Casa Tabatia starting at noon. So our first speaker is going to be Denise Miller, who is our executive director, and get everybody caught up to date on what's been happening and not happening, and hopefully what will happen in the future. The following week will be Jennifer Ray Keene from the port and updating the chamber on a lot of the port activities that are going on. And I'm sure if anybody has a presentation properly that you get a hold of Miss Miller at the office and let her show on the calendar.
All right.
Keep us updated, and we would really like to have a city update, I'm
Okay.
sure, at some time, so to contact her. Really quick, can I do a Planners Day
Yes.
update? Of course, our traditional Planners Day would be starting next week, which it is. And if they would please, people go on to the Woodland Planners Day site. There is a schedule up. Most of it, a lot of it is virtual. I know I have young ladies at my house right now working up a little game, maybe I could call it. I guess it is right now. So please refer to that, and of course everything is done virtual. Enter your children doing chalk drawings on your sidewalk, your cute pet or your classic car or something like that. Get those in, and we are doing it and excited about it, that there is going to be a reverse parade on Saturday morning, starting at 9 o'clock at the Woodland High School. And what that involves is anybody who has a float or a display or something to put up, you will be stationary in the parking lot, and there will be a direct route to view all of the different entries. So we're kind of excited about that. We're trying to do the best we can, and preparing for next year, which will be our 100th year, and that is going to be a blast. So everybody better stay well. Coronation is going to be here in the chamber room on Friday night, but that is a limited situation to parents and mostly parents, I think, and the girls for right now. And what they do after that is their choice. Tickets are available at Columbia Bank, and we will have them available up until 3 o'clock on Sunday the 20th, and we will be downtown at Hoffman Plaza on that Sunday. And so come by and buy your raffle tickets.
Speaking of raffle tickets, Miss Coleman,
Owes me $20.
you owe Mrs. Graham $20, and I have your tickets. You're muted. Don't argue.
Double or nothing.
There you go.
You know what?
Yeah, $20. You borrowed from Mrs. Graham.
Why didn't you tell me I had 20 burning a hole in my pocket?
Why? It's not my responsibility.
Oh, okay.
I just have your tickets, so when you win, I'll go get your prize for you. But I'm going to need you to pay Mrs. Graham.
Yeah, don't make my
Thank
books
you,
off.
Mrs. Graham, for doing that for me. I will make sure you're paid this week.
Thank you, my dear.
Thank you. Put me on the hook.
Make sure it's cash.
It's my name on that one. Jeez.
Are you gonna live stream the coronation?
Yes, the coronation will be live streamed.
Okay, so I took care of that. I made a note when you said that because I forgot last week to hit her up on that one. Do you want to talk about DWR?
As far as I know, there's not been a meeting.
Okay. Mrs. Rounds.
I sat in on the meeting, a Zoom meeting. I believe it was last Thursday or the Thursday before, but I made some good notes and I forgot and left them at
Okay.
home, so I'm not going to be able to report because
Okay.
there's been a lot of time span in between there, but it was very interesting.
Good.
It was a good meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Coleman, did you want to give an update on DWR? Is there one?
There's not an update right now. Loda and I are working on some deposits that we've received in regards to donations to DWR, and then we're trying to work on getting the account reconciled at the bank. We're kind of working with the bank and going from there. I'll set up a meeting. I went to set up a meeting and just didn't hit the button to set the meeting up. So I had it all poised. I just didn't hit the submit button. So
Okay.
we'll get a meeting this month.
All right, thank you very much. Questions from Mrs. Graham or Mrs. Round?
I think I saw Lady Bond planting plants in the planters downtown Saturday.
You probably did.
Okay, that's what, I was driving by and they were.
They're redoing them right now. So yes, and I believe that DWR is taking those over after talking to Mrs. Bond. Is that right?
No, we're talking about the planters that Jamie Bond and Erica Rodman planted in the metal.
Yes.
No. So, Public Works has donated some money towards plants for them to replant those. Volunteered to take on the watering of those for the summer.
Okay.
So we took that over for this year only.
Okay.
We'll try to figure out some type of watering system, but the location of them doesn't allow us to put a drip system or anything in, so we will be hand watering those this summer.
And those are in the old, or they're in the flagpole holders, or are they in the horse?
They're in the sidewalk.
Okay. But what's the hole that they're put into? Is it where they used to tie up horses?
No. This is actually created separate.
Oh,
just
okay.
for in the sidewalk. There was actually a separate stand.
Okay. I thought they were using some kind of, okay, got it, okay. So to answer your question, yes, Mrs. Holland, they're down there planting the flowers. That was a long answer. All right, moving on to reports of officers. As always, if you have anything for anyone beyond myself or Mr. Boyce, feel free to ask the question. If not, we will move on. July 6th, put that on your calendars. As of July 1st, we are back to open normally. So July 6th, you will see staff back in the room at our first meeting in July. It should be chairs and back to normal. Yes, Mr. Plaza.
Open normally, is that for the whole city or just for the city?
For the whole city.
Beautiful.
That include the restrooms and parks?
Yes, I hope so.
Is that also even the door to sit at?
Yes.
Nice.
Community center?
Yes, everything's back open as of the 1st of July.
Okay.
So the 6th will be in here in a normal setting again.
So it's Will Fund first round?
With staff. Well, I'm working on it. If only, right, maybe if Planters Days was delayed a few weeks, we could do a full, just kidding, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of planning that goes in that, I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't do that to you, I saw you melt down a little bit right there. I also attended the WQCC meeting, which is always very informative. Love getting together with the other entities and learning what's going on with them and sharing information back and forth, which is good. I already hit Coleman with their $20. And graduation for our seniors is this Friday, the 11th. So hopefully the weather stays nice and that don't do that. Don't do that. It's going to be outside, and they have a fireworks display planned for the kids this year. So for those of you that live on the west side of town, you'll be seeing some fireworks going on around the 9 o'clock hour.
Location?
They're being shot off in the county, right behind the high school at the Apostolic Church. Is that, did I get that right?
Right.
Which is right in the county. So somewhere over there on that property, they'll be firing off from there. No. You have to have a ticket. I happen to have 12. Excellent, yes. Questions for me at this time? No. Okay. Mr. Boyce.
Okay, thank you. I attended some of the same functions. I was at the first fire truck push-in, and we didn't realize that driveway's a little slanted, so we had to get an assist and start up the truck to get in, but it was a good event. I also attended the port ribbon cutting. It was an awesome event, WQCC. I wanted to mention to council that on June 22nd through the 25th, AWC is having its annual conference. It's an online conference. You can register online, or if you need assistance, please let me know and we'll get you registered. I think that's where I'll leave it right now. If anyone has questions, let me know.
Questions for Mr. Boyce? Mr. Fredericks?
If we could reschedule that fire truck inspection so I can see what the lights are on it, that'd be great. I missed that. No, I went, and nobody was there. So, I don't see Mr. Jackson on the line.
I told him he could dive off. I told him we didn't need him, so I
Okay.
apologize. That's on me.
That's on the mayor. Add that to the list. Okay, thank
Add
you.
that to the list, the long list. Of
Got it on the
things
list.
me.
They're on, it's backing in right now.
Look outside. There you go, Mr. Fredericks. Are you happy?
I thought I seen somebody.
Well, I want to go for a ride. I knew that's what it was. That was all about. I will say though that City Hall has been working on a tremendous amount of items. I met with all the department heads today individually and went over what they've got on their plates, what's going on, some of their needs as we're getting ready to go into budget and everything else of what's best for the city. So we're working on the consolidation from Public Works over here into City Hall, so it'll be one-stop location here pretty soon. And just a number of other things. New website that's been budgeted, and we've been working on that. Travis has a committee that's put together with some of the employees that that should be deployed in the next couple of months. So we've got a lot of big things that are going on. So we appreciate everyone's patience with us, but we've got a lot in the hopper right now. So we're really excited about it and getting a lot of work done. So more to come with that as we move through the summer, but just excited about all the work that's being done by the team.
Oh, were we gonna have a retreat?
We probably should.
See?
Sometime
There
after
was
July
something.
6th.
Be sometime after July 6th.
Okay.
We have two of them.
Any questions for department heads this evening besides myself and Mr. Boyce? Seeing none, moving on to consent items.
Move to approve the consent items.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Chapman, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to action items. Action item C, Resolution 737, adopting the 2022-2027 Transportation Improvement Plan.
Move to adopt resolution number 737. I changed the motion.
Mr. Fredericks.
Move to discuss resolution number 737.
I'll second.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks to discuss Resolution 737, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Fredericks.
I guess before I ask my questions, can staff provide us Ms. Coleman provide us where we're at in this, the Transportation Improvement Plan Program? It was my understanding that we have this put in front of us as this is potentially projects that could occur, and we need to have them on a plan for funding purposes. So that's point one, and then I'll wait
Okay.
for
Ms.
second
Coleman.
question. And she didn't hear any of the chat.
Yes,
Did you hear Mr. Fredericks?
yes, I did.
Okay.
And he is correct. The purpose of the Transportation Improvement Plan, the MAP, is for development and potential funding for future road construction or development. For instance, if we show a road going in and through properties, that means that that property is probably in a planning stage and we want to figure out how to loop it. A prime example is the parcel that was developed up above the intermediate school where we had put on the tip that we were going to have a road that goes in and out connecting to State Route 503. That's just a simple example. But now, again, remember that the tip isn't, it's final to submit to the state for the State Transportation Improvement Plan for the STIP, but I want to share with you that it can be amended. So if we have something that comes in and we find that something else is better, a different loop, a different route, merger of properties, lot line adjustments, so on and so forth, we can amend the tip later on, but this is a best guesstimate, I guess I would say, based on kind of what we know and what we've been working with. I know the port brought forward a few concerns, but we will make sure that work with the port to make sure that if they need some type of road or improvement put on this tip form, that we could modify it and do it for grant opportunities that they might have too. So just an FYI, we are aware of some of their concerns.
Mr. Fredericks?
So just to follow up to that, if the council takes no action on this item and just lets it die and we just ignore it, what are the ramifications to the city for that?
First of all, it's not allowed. you have to take action and say we're denying it for this reason because I don't like this or that, and we have to go back and change it and bring it back forward. We have a certain deadline every year that we have to submit that, and we also have to submit it to the state. So, or we do not receive any funding, any type of state or federal funding. So the ramifications are grant dollars that are in line or in process would not be able to be granted because we do not have it approved on the tip, which goes to the date.
Does that include grant dollars associated with the port as well? Or other, I should just say other entities?
Well, if it's in our city limits, and they have, let's just give an example. I think that one of the points that they brought forward was there is a railroad spur that they were talking about that might be out at the port. Now, if it's in the county, it doesn't need to be on our state, on our tip, because it's not in the city limits. So we're just talking about everything within the city limits. And again, we work with the property owners to see what would work best for them, and if the, how would I say this, if the port is going out for grant dollars and they're saying, hey, we want to put this road in and it's actually on the city's tip, then they would be able to receive grant dollars for that. That is correct. We would want to make sure that we work with them so they could receive grant dollars to come within our city and help us improve our city. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Fredericks?
In a follow-up, if a council member has a concern and a majority of those council members agree, can you remove something that is listed on here as a priority if you do not agree that it should be a priority?
Well, we don't really have any, we have a couple priorities right now, and that's exit 21. But it doesn't really matter what prioritization it's in, per se. I think there's 150 different projects that are kind of on that map altogether when we figure out each piece and portion. So we have a list that states all of these, and we prioritize them just on a best guesstimate. It doesn't, if we prioritize it number 50 and it moves up to number 1, that's not a big deal. We can just modify it. So don't pay too much attention to the priority as much as have we covered what we want to do in the area that we want to work. So an example would be at exit 21, we want to make sure that we not only include the on and off ramp, but we also want to include, let me do another one. Let's do Davidson Crossing. So not only do we want to do, the water line, put that on there, even though that's not a road, we still need to go underneath that road. And then we also want to show that we're putting a residential crossing over there over the railroad that ties into the road, so on and so forth. So again, this is just for road costs, not so much for water. Is there a particular one that you're looking at that you want to bring to my attention that I could share some thoughts on?
Yeah, I'd like to remove number 35, which is the Scott Hill Connectors, which has a potential to dump a whole bunch of folks down off of the Scott Hill into a neighborhood development and run them through a neighborhood when they're coming back from softball tournaments, soccer tournaments. I think the plan is to put those people and have that traffic flow directly through a neighborhood. And I have folks, I guess I should say I have a dog in the fight for now. It's not my intention to be living at the home that I'm currently living at now in another year. But potentially there's a concern with dumping a bunch of traffic through a neighborhood development.
Yeah, so I know the one you're talking about, and that's been on the tip forever and a day, and the the whole intent of tying that, you talk about Scott Hill Park where it'll drop down over the neighborhood, is it Meriwether?
Yes, it is.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. So the intent of the entire development of Scott Hill Park in Meriwether has always been to tie that road in for a loop for that traffic to be able to go up across that Scott Hill. But you have to remember that, and I hope people realize this, that in order to get to that park, people are going to not be driving down State Route 503, go through the Meriwether subdivision to come back up around the backside of the hill to go to that park. And they're not going to be dumping out that way unless they're coming from down at the dam and Cougar area, which is not where our traffic's going to come from for Scott Hill Park. The traffic for Scott Hill Park is going to come off Interstate 5, and it's going to feed on the old Pacific Highway, and they're going to go right up down Scott Hill Road, and they're going to dump right out on the other side of Scott Hill, where we're going to dump down into Green Mountain Road over by the Little League Fields, or they're going to come right back down Scott Hill Road and go right out and hop on the freeway. This park is intended for bringing revenue into the city, this West Scott Hill Park, and because it's a sports complex, your traffic is not going to be coming from State Route 503 going through a Meriwether subdivision. Now, the whole intent of that circling around was you need an alternate route to get out in a case of emergency, and that's where people are going to go. If there's some major catastrophe, then people are going to go that route. But most people are going to come back through. There's a road that's going to tie over and dump down into Green Mountain Road that we're working on a subdivision right now in that area, and then it's also going to go back down Scott Hill Park, and they're going to jump onto I-5. Because you're going to be bringing people in from outside of the city for tournaments, and they're not going to know about that Mary Hill subdivision. You might have a few wanderers there, but that isn't your main course of road access. I don't think people are realizing what that park is doing. And I will tell you, for all the kids that are going to be playing in those sports tournaments, it's going to be a nice access to come right up that hill in Meriwether if you have kids that live in that area instead of looping all the way around through town.
Yep, Ms. Coleman, I don't think the issue is that people are going to start by going that direction. I think they're going to go the way you just stated. I think the concern is when tournaments are over, folks are going to dump out, and they're going to dump out through the neighborhood. So I think it's when they're leaving. I don't think it's when they're coming. And I think that's the challenge and the concern that have been brought up and raised by neighbors in that neighborhood. So I have a feeling that this will be an issue that will be heard by a later council, and potentially have it to be to where transportation does not flow out of there. But I think this will be something that happens later. But if I understand correctly, the intent would be to leave it on for funding purposes, and we get to fight about it and have a debate about what that looks like. Shouldn't use the word fight. Debate about what that looks like later.
Right, and I have a tendency to disagree with the thought process that traffic's going to dump that way. Because anybody, and I know we all have kids and we all go to tournaments, and I'm going to tell you that when I go to a tournament and it's out of town, I am not going to go. GPS is that most people are from out of town. They're going to go where GPS takes them. GPS is not going to take them down through Meriwether and loop all the way down and hit State Route 503 to come back up through and tie into Old Pacific Highway. They're going to go right back out the same way they came in. So I have a tendency to disagree with that for those people who are coming in from out of town, because they're not going the back way to do a loop-de-loop around. They'll be going right in from the freeway and coming right back out and getting right back on the freeway. There's no reason for them to loop around and do a big circle, because GPS won't take them that way unless there's some accident or some catastrophe. Then it might take them that way, but they gotta go, they have to come right back around to Old Pacific Highway, and Old Pacific Highway is right at the bottom of the hill. So there would be no reason for them to go all the way down through Meriwether and tie back out around.
I think a lot of it depends on how that is designed. And
I agree.
And
I fully agree with that.
A lot of it comes through that. So, okay, thank you.
Mr. Plaza?
Yeah. Yep.
Ms. Coleman, I have a couple of questions real quick, hopefully just to clarify things and move us along. So, can you hear me okay? Okay. The first question, the tip, if I'm understanding right, at this stage, it's basically just a guideline or an outline in order to satisfy state, for lack of a better word, red tape requirements for moving forward. And it's not, no matter what's in there at this point, it's not set in stone. Is that correct? Okay, good. That's a thumbs up, so that's a yes. And so even if we vote this in, as projects come down the pike, let's say, just to use Mr. Frederick's example of the Scott Hill one, if when that comes down, that's going to have to come in front of the council first before anything's done, correct? No?
No, basically, all projects go through planning and public works. So it goes to us and we say, let's just say it's a generalization that we have that road that goes from Scott Hill down through Meriwether. We have a road showing a connection point, but the road doesn't have to follow that line that's on the map. If we find there's a little different route and it has to go a little bit to the east or the west or whatever direction it needs to go, we can do that. We have wiggle room, but we're just showing this is a general vicinity of where we see a transportation improvement.
Right, yeah, but what I'm trying to find out is, again, just I used his example because that was the last one brought up, is when we get to that Scott Hill Road project, you have to get the funding in order to build that first, so it has to come to us, correct?
Yeah, if we receive funding for it. If somebody does a development and we have them develop the road because they're doing a development, we don't bring that to council. That all goes through planning.
Okay. So technically, other than maybe, one or two projects that are funded through other things, everything that's in there at some point is going to cross our desk. And if we have issues with it at that point, then we could either give it the thumbs down or ask for changes or whatever. It's not, if we pass the tip tonight, that's not a green card, not green card, but a green light saying that, okay, everything that's in the tip is going to automatically happen. Is that right?
That's 100% correct. It will not automatically happen.
Yeah, okay.
Most of the items in the tip are dream items for either developers coming in or, the port gets grant dollars or we get grant dollars, or like I said, a big developer comes in. That's when that happens. The only time it would not come to council that I can think of off the top of my head just immediately is if a developer is going to develop a property and we require them to put that road in. And again, that example is that development that's just up above the intermediate schools. We told them that we have future development that ties into State Route 503, so we had them put a loop road in there and then work with them on their lot lines to figure out how that road really went. But we all knew that it was going to loop in off State Route 503 and loop back out, and you can see that. But if you look at the actual plans, the road isn't exactly like we showed on the tip. And that's why we're taking it off. But that would be the reason why it wouldn't come to council. Otherwise, any type of funding, federal or state funding, would come through council for approval prior to. Correct.
Okay. And then just one more question. On the little map thing, you can't see it, but the little map thing we've got, there's a bunch of funded, existing, and proposed circles on it. I'm assuming those are those just circles indicating something? Are those proposed roundabouts, or what's the story with those? Because I know we were talking about putting in streetlights.
Yeah, circle is a general vicinity area, so if we circle State Route, like in exit 21, we've circled that area like we're doing something in this area. Part of it would have been that exit 21 study, and then it kind of shows the road branching off where this would be exit 21 funding, state or federal funding that we've applied for. But some of it, if we've taken it off or put it in a different color, there's a legend on there that shows that we already received funding for that, and we're working on that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that those weren't roundabouts.
And that would be an example, would be West Scott Avenue. When you look at Scott, that would be a different color because we received TIB funding for both the north and, it was the east and the west tracks. So that would be a different color because we received funding for that through TIB. Also, if you look at Gorig Street, where we did the ADA ramps, we received funding for that. We also received funding for Lakeshore. So all those would be different colors because they were on the map. We were able to get grant dollars for that, and so it shows that we already have funding received.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Rounds?
I just wanted to make sure that we work with the other big landowner, which is the Sony's out there too, rather than just the port. So I want to make sure that we continue to converse with them and try to make things right in that area also.
Absolutely. Anytime somebody comes forward to us, they also, they bring a plan to Travis's Department of Planning, and they want to bring that to us. We can put anything at any time if any landowner has any ideas. Like if a landowner comes and says, hey, I think that we can do an extension off of, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a road over there on the other side of the tracks, off Pekin. I have a piece of land and I think we should extend a road off of Pekin. We would absolutely work with the landowner. All you have to do is come and ask us and say, hey, let's put a road here to help truck traffic, and I can divvy up my land. It gives them 2 road frontage opportunities for their land to make it worth more value, and they're willing to give us a section of that land. We can absolutely put it on the tip. All they have to do is come forward to us, no problem.
Mr. Plaza?
It's for the city. If it makes sense for the city overall transportation plan, right? We don't just want to stub out. we want it's for traffic flow throughout the city, not just have roads that go to no man's land. So the whole purpose is to improve the flow of traffic in the city.
Okay, so ideally, it would be best for the city and the property owner that we come to some sort of agreement on both sides of things. So if the property owners wanted to get in touch with you in order to develop a line of communication about potential projects that may be going on their property, what's the best way to do it? Just come down and see you, or send you an email, or what?
Contact planning, Travis's department with planning, then we can set up a pre-con.
Okay, thanks.
Anything further? Oh, there's Travis. All right, seeing nothing else. Action item C, Resolution 737, adopting the 2022-2027 Transportation Improvement Program.
Move to adopt resolution number 737.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
No discussion.
Councilmember Chapman.
I think we already talked about it. So.
Further discussion. Seeing none, Chair will take the vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving on to action item D, authorize mayor to sign agreement with PBS and Kittleson and Associates, Inc. for RAISE grant application services.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, second by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Fredericks.
No discussion.
Councilmember Rounds.
No discussion.
Further discussion.
Thank you, Tracy.
All right, seeing none. Action item D, authorize mayor to sign agreement with PBS and Kittleson Associates, Inc. for RAISE grant application services. Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Did I get everybody? Did I call you Mr. Fredericks?
You did, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, the ayes have it. Moving on to action item E, ordinance number 1468, shoreline ordinance, final reading.
I'll make a motion to approve action item E, ordinance number 1468, shoreline ordinance.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Rounds. Was that you, Mr. Fredericks?
Mm-hmm.
Seconded by Councilmember Fredericks. Councilmember Rounds.
I think we've discussed this enough, and it's time to go ahead and approve it.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Yeah, I hate this though. it just seems to me like, and Mr. Goddard, maybe you can speak, maybe you don't want to speak to this, but it always seems to me like we end up with rules that are really good for Seattle and Pierce County, Snohomish County, and then they don't make sense here. Can you tell me how this is good for somebody in Woodland? He's like, you gave me an option and then you didn't give me an option.
Mr. Goddard?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, as I understood it, the question was you wanted me to make sure you understood why it's important that the city adopts these rules and how our plan differentiates us from some of the bigger fish out on the Puget Sound. Is that correct?
Kind of. More of how does it benefit Woodland directly?
So, there's a couple ways to answer that question. The city of Woodland does enjoy a considerable amount of waterfront and some tourism because the East Fork of the Lewis, or the North Fork of the Lewis River, is a popular recreation destination. So whether it's fishing, whether it's swimming, whether it's boating, and part of that is Horseshoe Lake, which of course gets its water from the river. And so shoreline protection ensures environmental protection and economic protection for those reasons. The city is in a unique situation in that there is not a lot of direct interaction with the shoreline except for Horseshoe Lake. And so while we're required to adopt the Shoreline Management Act, the actual amount of applications that we need to review are pretty minimal. So, in a sense, we are protecting the public good, and there are waterfront property owners who bear the majority of that burden. And that's just kind of a reality of our geography. So, I'm not sure whether that adequately answers your question.
It does, and the record should reflect that we lost 2 callers while you were discussing that, Mr. Goddard, so thank you.
They fell asleep and dropped their phone, right?
Thank you, Travis.
Further discussion? All right, seeing none. Action item E, ordinance number 1468, shoreline ordinance, final reading. Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving on to action item F, authorize the mayor to sign agreement with Lakeside Industries for Garrett Street Grind and Overlay Project.
I'd make a motion to approve action item F, authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with Lakeshore Industries for the Gorey Street Grind and Overlay Project.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Rounds, seconded by Councilmember Smith. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Councilmember Rounds.
Well, our streets definitely need it, so I would say let's go for it.
Councilmember Smith.
No comment.
Further discussion?
Thank you, Ms. Coleman.
All right.
She's had enough.
Chair will take the vote on, you want something? What?
I just wanted to share something before you guys vote on this. I just wanted to give a little bit of background. Is that possible?
I think they were going to say yes, but you might have out of it now.
I want to make sure that I'm fully disclosed and everything's
yeah.
fully.
No, I think you should. Absolutely.
Okay. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of background. I've given it to the Public Works Committee, and they're abreast of what's going on. But I wanted to share with you guys, the rest of the council members, because you do not sit on the Public Works Committee. So this particular project, this is TID funding, and we received grant dollars to do the ADA ramps and a grind and overlay for this road. We had an opportunity to get the ADA ramps done last year, which you know we've completed. You guys voted in a contractor to do that. And then this year we have to do the grind and overlay. We had an opportunity to piggyback on the county's contract for reduced pricing for grind and overlay, because they do it all throughout the county and work with other cities. So I believe Kalama was one of the cities that piggybacked on the contract as well. We went to a pre-con. Well, when we met with these contractors, and it was Lakeside Industries that was chosen as a low bidder for the county project, grind and overlay, our road is in such bad shape that they cannot come in and do a 2-inch grind and overlay. So we had to go out for another bid, and that's what this is about, in order to fix the road, to get the road to get the grade of the road at the right level, to be able to have the grind and overlay done so the road is done at the level that's needed in order to have TIB funding signed off and show them that we did a good job with those grant dollars. So the way this is going to work, and so I just want you guys to be aware so you can share it with the citizens, is Lakeside Industries, who is the county contractor, will come in and do the 2-inch grind and grind off the asphalt. Then the new contractor, who you're working on awarding now, will come in and do the repair of the road and build the road up. And then Lakeside, the county contractor, will come back and do the overlay. So they're going to have to work side by side. It's going to be a very highly visible project. Both these contractors are going to have to work very closely together, and we have been speaking with each of the contractors to let them know that they have to work together on this. So that road is going to be torn up and a lot of work going on there for a number of weeks, like about 4 weeks. And so we're going to put a board out that tells citizens that there's going to be work going on there, and we're hoping to get that board out next week. So a reader board, just so you guys are aware. But I want to let you guys know that we had to go out with the lowest bidder in order to do that, so we couldn't just choose Lakeside Industries, who was the county's bidder, because that contract is only for a grind and overlay. So I just want you guys to know what's going on if you're wondering kind of how this happened and how it came about that we're using 3 different contractors for 3 different pieces of these grant dollars. But that's kind of the way it's worked, so just an FYI.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Coleman. I'll take the vote now on action item F, authorize the mayor to sign agreement with Lakeside Industries for Garrick Street Grind and Overlay Project. Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving on to action item G, authorize mayor to sign memorandum of understanding regarding use of 100 Davidson Avenue.
I make a motion to approve action item G, authorize mayor to sign memorandum of understanding regarding use of 100 Davidson Avenue.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Rounds, seconded by Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Rounds.
Well, it'll give us a little bit of revenue, and the school, I guess, is in need of that type of area to be able to train some of their athletes, so.
Councilmember Smith.
I think it's a good thing, trying to figure out a way to help the school out.
Further discussion. Seeing none. Moving on to a vote for action item G, authorize mayor to sign memorandum of understanding regarding use of 100 Davidson Avenue. Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The time is now 8:24. We'll take a 6-minute recess before going into workshop.
This conference
Just
is
so
no
everyone's aware,
longer
we're still
being
recording up in
recorded.
the corner.
Yes.
Sounds good. Okay.
I will talk with Marcus, technically with Oak Creek, thing. So I forgot when I went this way, they had bulldozers blocking my road. I went around into the county thing, but the lady in front of me, where she was going.
Hey.
So I'll go the freeway next time.
So,
This one's gonna be a while, I think. There's a lot on the workshop here.
Yeah, so approve this workshop.
Very cold mother, we actually.
Oh, yes, yeah. Spearmint, peppermint, spearmint, okay, yeah. Yes, we'll let you know real quick.
Why is it? He doesn't. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't have one because he can't.
Good, how are you? So far.
Good.
Well,
See, I thought that Scott Hill connection had to be done for fire.
like, I graduated, it's all sounds really kind of. And he was this way,
Come out this way. Yeah.
Well, I agree.
My suggestion, maybe that is that okay, that's just for fire, then put a fire gate there, that only the fire department can go. Unintended consequences.
If you don't show the state, it makes people do it. That's not to take it out. To those departments, well, someone who's going to need their hair.
Remove this from the fire plant.
So then the project goes through, and they say, no, we have to hold the road in, so it goes to the planning commission process.
And it, like, you're literally telling somebody to stand up, everybody, that don't care about background checks.
Yeah. That sounds cool.
And that's a requirement.
Well, the other thing, would that affect the?
I didn't know that. I didn't know there was I knew
Well, that's what some places have done. And so it might, I don't know.
But if they get a grant for that road, that would help Park get the project done.
Find out what other areas.
So.
That she has. Or you can ask her. I don't know if
She was ready to vote no on you. She's like, don't you touch that Scott Hill Park.
You're going to be up all night. Oh, we got one there. I thought we were.
This conference will now be recorded.
Well, I mean, that's
All right, the time is now 8:30.
I'll go there.
And we are going into a workshop to discuss a number of items this evening. And first up, here, let me focus. And I believe that you should have this piece of paper on your DS there. And it's to discuss the Transportation Benefit District. As you know, we've attempted to ask the voters to put this into play a few times, and both times it's been denied. But we thought we would revisit it again, just because that's when we start talking about financial growth. This is one of the areas that we can look at and ask the voters to approve. One thing that I agree with this is the fact that all users that use our roadways within the city, not just the citizens, but anyone, the 15,000 around us, are paying a little bit to help with the transportation system. And with that, Mr. Boyce, do you want to talk about the financials?
Sure. So what you have before you, we're looking at the sales tax aspect, as Mayor Finn had indicated, at 0.2%. What you have are estimates of what that 0.2% would bring in on an annual basis. So for 2020, we estimated that $296,000 would have been received for roads, and I'm estimating sales tax increases at 2% per year. And as you know, the further you get out, the more likely that projection may wane a little bit. But you can see, annually, you're looking at a little over $300,000 per year if that were to pass. Down below that, you see the Transportation Benefit District. It talks about the sales tax, all the different categories. You can see right now the state's at 6.5%, 1.1% goes to the city. 0.1% for public safety sales tax that goes to the city, and the county gets a portion. 0.1% for mental health in the county, 0.1% for 911, and then we're proposing, we're throwing it out there for City Council to consider going to the voters for 0.2 for the Transportation Benefit District. The benefit is, as I think you've all noticed, our very industrious Public Works Director, Coleman, has a knack for getting grants. But when doing so, there are grant matches that are required. This would help continue to leverage city dollars for even more projects here in the city. As I also put in the packet some of the past staff notes the last time we went, so you could look back and see what we presented before. But I think most of you are familiar with it. We did set up the Transportation Benefit District. At one point in time, we had City Council wearing two separate hats, City Councilors and Transportation Benefit District Managers. At one point in time, we consolidated that to be under the power of City Council. So we're just looking for some indication, is this something City Council would like to put before the voters? And I'll try to field any questions you may have.
Mrs. Rounds.
One question, do we know if there's going to be any big tax things or any, is the school getting ready to do something, or is the port getting ready to do something?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Because,
no.
Let me tell you, if they are,
yeah.
This would be...
And I think that was part of our problem the last time that we had this discussion.
Exactly.
It was, and the only thing that passed that election cycle was, or that voting cycle, was the mosquito district for the city of Woodland, and everything else in the county failed.
Yeah.
So I was always against the tab increase, which I believe that they've taken away now, which is good, because I think that puts the heavy lifting and the burden on the citizens themselves. You're talking 2,000 households or so to try and fix the roadway that 15 to 16,000 people are using on a daily basis. I'm not a big fan of paying more money for things, but when we look at our budget and how many people are actually using it, I think it's only fair that folks pay their fair share, which is
well, if you go out of town to Clark County or to Cowlitz, to Longview, or whatever, you're paying the higher tax than what you're paying in Woodland. too, so.
I want to say is it two pennies on $50, or is it 10 cents on $50? I can't remember what the math is now. It's not a lot. I mean, but it obviously adds up to a lot for us in order to go and do some paving and some pothole repairs. Mr. Plaza.
Hey, this is just me, one guy on the council, but I don't have any problem putting this before the voters. As far as I'm concerned, if it was up to me, any tax increase of any kind would be put in front of the voters to decide on. So, yeah, I don't see an issue other than it has failed a couple times before. I don't know if that was due to other things being on the election thing, and people are just getting tired of getting hammered with a ton of things at once, or if it was a lack of public education on exactly who would be paying for this, whether people from out of town are going to be paying for it, which they are, but I don't know if a lot of people knew that other than, oh, this is just another tax the damn city's putting on us, right? So, considering all the things that it's going to, and I don't know, who knows, maybe if the state didn't steal so much of our money, we wouldn't need to keep doing these things, but...
Well, if you look at the breakdown, I mean, clearly they don't get enough.
Well, yeah, obviously. But, yeah, if we're going to put it in front of the voters, then I'm okay with it, and they can decide whether or not they want to pay it or not.
And I will say, too, just for conversation piece as well, is that this is dedicated funding. We can't use it for anything else. So this money that would be brought in, similar to the what the voters approved for this building, that money goes straight to this building.
Yeah, the only thing I would suggest is that there's some kind of maybe more broad education element than were on the previous two, so that the people, the more than the, what do we got here? 1, 2, 3 people that are here tonight actually know what this entails, so.
Being generous.
Mr. Fredericks?
So yeah, we've done this a couple times before, and I thought the education pieces that went out prior were plenty that went out for this. Unfortunately, there was a nice little hit piece that was done with it, because that's exactly what I'm going to call it. It was a hit piece saying that the city already has the money, and they're right, we do have the money, but what do you want to cut in order to pay for this? Do you want to cut, that's where we're at. We're not like flush with cash. Like, oh, hey, any future grant money, as far as I understand it, would have to come directly from the city's reserve fund, so the savings account.
Which I think we just, and Ms. Coleman can...
Just went into 129 grand for that?
I was going to say, I think 40 grand, I think we pulled to do a match grant. Is that right?
I didn't hear what was said about, I didn't hear what the council...
Mr. Fredericks was stating that this money could be used for grants, and if we don't have this type of funding, that we would have to pull it out of reserves if we were to obtain a grant somewhere it wasn't budgeted for.
That's correct, and actually, we've been pulling money from our street fund to do grant matches, and so we haven't, for any grants that we got, so we can do a more in-depth project versus just chip seal projects all around the city that have been done for years. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Yes, it does. And one of the things was that got brought up, well, if the city would just write grants, they would get more funding for their streets. Well, I think there's a component of that requires a match, and we have no funding for the match. So I am supportive of this. Yeah, I'm definitely supportive of bringing this forward. I think it was Public Works Director Bart Stepp, who back in 2012 indicated that we needed $500,000 a year for all of the transportation and infrastructure for the city. This covers 60% of that number. So maybe it was a little inflated. I would think, though, that costs have increased a lot since then. The way we print money out of thin air, things are more expensive nowadays, and will continue to get more expensive. And so, yeah, I'm supportive of bringing this forward. There's plenty of communication that can be had in, like, when we send out a utility bill, there was a separate flyer that was done that had to be approved by the PDC to ensure that it wasn't too pro or too, you know, yeah, something like that. There's a process there. But, yeah, I'm supportive of this. I think our roads are in desperate need of it. If you take a walk in my area of, I live in a newer development in Woodland, but it doesn't take me, I don't have to go far to see streets in disrepair. And so I think this is desperately needed. And the last thing that I would say is, when we talk about the transportation improvement plan that we just passed, the TIP, priority 1, priority 2, the state's going to look and they're going to determine, you know, is the city of Woodland using the toolbox and using the tools within their toolbox for funding. And this will send a message, if it does get passed, it will send a message to Olympia that says, hey, the city of Woodland is serious about infrastructure. We need to do something with Exit 21. And that's how they look at it. And I've been told that by legislators, not in our district, but in other districts that have said, you're not using the tools to your disposal. And until that happens, we're going to be reticent to giving you money. So it can only help us. And the tab thing is a disaster, so I wouldn't ever support that. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm for sending it to the people also. We definitely need the money for the roads, and if the people want to vote for it, then we'll get it, and if they don't, then they'll have to live with the streets we have, so. But we definitely need to let people know and have meetings or whatever to let people know how this is going to work or what it takes, that we do have to put forth some money and it'll have to come out of our savings account if we don't, or our reserves if we don't pass this, so, in order to get some things done.
And part of the documentation that was attached in the agenda included this flyer that was sent out, that was approved by the PDC to go out, so, I mean, it's pretty thorough.
Mr. Smith?
A lot of people talk about grants, but eventually grants will come to an end, I would assume. Or they will go to other cities that are in higher need. To me, it seems like a good idea. Everybody talks about wanting to do bigger projects, but the city doesn't have the cash reserves to be able to do a bigger project, and this might give an opportunity for that.
Okay. I'm seeing a consensus to draft up some paperwork and bring it back to council to be placed on the ballot within the timeline.
Do we know what it would cost to be put on the ballot?
We're already paying. So it's just another item to put on there because we do have an election this year.
Okay.
So we're already paying.
Okay.
And to clarify what you weren't sure on when you started, the cost would be 2 cents for every $10.
2 cents for every $10. Thank you.
2 cents increase, I guess.
Of taxable product.
Yes.
Not groceries like milk.
Right.
And cheese.
And eggs.
Eggs.
Bananas.
Okay. I'm seeing a bunch of head nodding, so we'll bring that back to you. Moving on to American Rescue Plan.
I actually looked up, before we move on.
Oh, sorry, Mrs. Holland, yes. I kept looking, but I think there was no eye contact made.
I was trying to find what year the first time you guys did it. So the first time was 2016 in the voter pamphlet, because I wrote the against statement for that one.
Well, we did couple that with another item.
That may have been the hit piece I was referring to, Ms. Holland.
So, interestingly enough, that this showed up as a workshop item because earlier in the week, in a random conversation, I replied back to Ms. Coleman, and I explained to her, I said, you probably don't know this, but I wrote the against statement for that. And let me tell you why. But I think marketed correctly, which this city, I mean, no offense to anybody, is really crappy at marketing anything, but marketed correctly, the voters would support it. And the reason being is back to a previous public works director who was about as exciting as mud. And having a 6-year transportation plan that was full of pipe dreams and had like 6 items on it that totaled $18 million. And no prospect of how any of that would be paid, just, yeah, we're gonna do this until we get enough to pay for something. That's how it was originally billed to the public. So I think my opinion is because Ms. Coleman is amazing at explaining all the exciting things happening around town within her department. And at our last interaction, I had asked the mayor if there's a way to have Ms. Coleman and Mr. Goddard do some live events maybe online, explaining all the exciting things that they're doing and how things are being paid for and that type of thing. Because as a voter, it's really easy to get behind something if you know you are not the only person solely paying for it. Because forever, it's always been, you know, Woodlanders, you just need to dig deeper. You just don't need to buy that coffee this week and we can have better stuff here. And that's not how it should be. So when I bring up grants, and why I have always brought up grants is because there is a way to pay for things. She is showing the public that there is a way to pay for things without that handful of people who live inside city limits being the sole payors to everything. And I look at the city just like I looked at how Woodland Action was when I inherited it. And there was no money, no project, all these projects that needed to be done, like our roads are being, how our roads are here. And how do you pay for it? Well, nobody has any money, and we had donors who no longer had faith in the organization. You have taxpayers who don't have faith in the city because of however many years of crappy interactions. So, me, as a voter, I would not be on board with it right now. You would have to market it to me. Market it to me. This isn't something you just go, hey, okay, you do it this time. Because it's not going to work. You have to market it correctly. You have to show the people what you have been doing that they didn't have to pay for. For a change, they didn't have to pay for it. You can show them by doing live events, doing whatever. I don't know that everybody gets a utility bill, so people who rent are voters. They don't see a utility bill. Well, now they don't anyway. So they're not going to see that anymore. And that thing was droll. Every time you guys put these out, it was just droll. And I don't know anybody who read it. So anyway, because I wrote the first one, I would like I wanted an explanation of why I wrote it. And so I went back and I read what I wrote in 2016, and all those things still made sense to me. That, yeah, all those wonderful things I had to say. I don't think it's a hit piece to say that there were 6 items on the transportation improvement plan, the 6-year transportation plan then. There were a handful of projects. Now, you look at this, and you've got a game plan. She's got, hey, we know this city's in catastrophic failure in certain places. We have a game plan, and this is how we're going to approach it. Instead of shotgun reaction to whatever, and that's why you have to pull. You've always historically pulled it from the general fund to pay for things because there was no in case of emergency fund. But again, I think marketed correctly and showing the people what you have been doing with their money in conjunction with grant dollars, because most people don't even really grasp what a grant is, just that it's free money. And something that I didn't think was fully explained is one of the previous grants that Ms. Coleman got, that's actually residuals from your gas tax and ag tax and something else. I can't remember the initials for that one. But so effectively it was your money, but this is how it gets allocated back to our town and spent. It goes to the state, yes, but this is how it comes back to our town. But those are the things that people aren't dumb here, and they don't like having their pockets picked. So if you just are open and explain this, not exciting. This is very boring. It's fancy and all, but I thought it was boring. It did not grab me and excite me to get on board with increasing sales tax. Yes, it's 2 cents, but 2 cents is a hill for some people to die on. So that's why with her, I was like, hey, I think marketed correctly, I would be behind it. Because the things that I was against when I wrote the against statement are not what is happening now. There's a different person in that position who has a game plan. She's showing what she's doing. She's done all these projects in town. She came in like gangbusters. And what we see in meetings, I think the public would appreciate having an opportunity to hear directly from Ms. Coleman. And people may have driven by public works people working in a hole and see this lady in a Carhartt and boots next to them and not realize that's the public works director. Because I've seen her out at 8 in the morning in a hole with people. You would have never seen previous public works directors anywhere near an actual labor job. I've actually, and just because we're having this conversation, I've ran into people who've told me they went in to talk to previous public works directors, handed their card to them to introduce themselves, to have him look at it, drop it in the garbage, and turn their back on them. He would turn his back on them. Hi, welcome to Woodland. So that's kind of the thing that in 2016, that is why I wrote this, which I still think people give me far too much credit because I just wrote something. That was the first time I ever wrote anything for a voter pamphlet. So pointing the finger at me and saying I am the sole reason y'all didn't get a TBD. And then the next year you threw it back on the ballot and somebody else wrote the against and people didn't pass it that time. So you have to look, when things don't work out, you have to figure out why people aren't supportive of it. That my interpretation is better marketing, and now you can show people what's actually going on. This, having better literature, having Ms. Coleman explain what's going on around town is a good way to gain support. But I think if you slap this on November's ballot, and handle it exactly the same way, it will not pass. So, doesn't matter who writes the against statement. I just don't think it will, because it's what a Woodlander will see is it's just more of the same of you're just going to keep asking and asking until you get what you want. Because I see that repeated from people. So, just going to keep asking until you people just get tired of saying no and finally say yes, and it doesn't work that way. So my opinion is, that's my opinion, is that marketed correctly, I think you would have more support. But to answer your question, I think it's a good idea for you to take back around, because she does need grant matching dollars, because I write grants and I understand how that works, and sometimes you don't have $2 to put towards something, and this would be at least $250,000 a year you know, that she could say, hey, guys, we have some of this, you know, for some of her smaller projects. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there now that I finally found the voter pamphlet from 2016, and now y'all can, you can move on, I guess.
Thank you, Mrs. Holland. Oh, Mr. Fredericks.
I thought Ms. Holland's analysis was extremely fair, and I think she brings up a valid point from a marketing standpoint. I think the concern that we continue to have, and you look at the lack of public engagement here, it's a difficult time finding people to run for council seats. It's a difficult time to get people involved in their local government. People have lives. That's why we have a representative democracy where we study all of the material and we make decisions on behalf of the folks we represent. And if they don't like that, when we run for re-election, they can vote us out. It's a beautiful thing. So I agree that I think the marketing can be improved, but I also know that a lot of this assumes you have a willing participant in an audience. And so how to best reach your audience, I think, could be looked at from a social media standpoint. There are certain things that can be done, but I don't disagree, you know, wholeheartedly with Ms. Holland on you have to market it correctly. I think the challenge is getting that to the average voter. The average voter makes a lot of their decisions based upon what they read in the voter's guide. That's as far as the research that is done. That's the way they do it. They look at the pro, they look at the con, they make a decision. You know, I can think of my own personal situation, voting for Supreme Court justices in the state of Washington. How often do you go read court cases, decisions that they've written, and make an informed decision on who you're casting a ballot for a Supreme Court justice in the state of Washington, which I believe is a 6-year term? Nope. I read the voter's guide, and it tells me that they have all these certifications from wherever. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm ever going to agree with anything that they've done or any court cases that they've voted on. I probably wouldn't agree with. But that's how I learn about them, through the voter's guide. So I think that that's our biggest marketing piece, is the voter's guide. But yeah, I'd certainly be willing to, you know, share some ideas with Miss Coleman, Miss Holland. I think she brings some value to the table with having to do this herself before, and coming up with different ways to take this to the folks in a better way. Because I don't disagree. Certainly there can always be a better way of doing things. And I agree with her. The six items that we had at the time on the transportation and improvement plan, I agree with her. You're only as good as your team. And our team back in 2012 sucked. Sorry, they did. And I think we're in a different spot today. And I think Ms. Holland has recognized we're in a different spot today, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but just from her comments, that I think having Ms. Coleman on our team has shown what can be done when you have the right people in place in a city. And so I'm supportive of bringing this forward, but I think there's something to be said about the marketing piece if you can get a willing audience. And that, I think, is the challenge of getting people who are excited. You know, we have 3 or 4 people online. It's typically the same folks that want to be involved. We have a regular speaker here tonight that's been involved. We just don't have a lot of engagement. And there can be ways that we can try to engage, which we have done in the past. We've tried to take our meetings to other places. We've tried to have meetings with the public at the bank, at the different places around town. We've explored, and we've had absolutely nobody show up. And that was through press releases. Nobody came. We had a lot of cookies to eat ourselves. Yeah, for sure. They weren't as good as Miss Graham's, but, I mean, they were Safeway cookies, so, but I agree, and I do, again, I'll repeat, I think it was a fair analysis of where we were at, and the reasoning behind it, I think, makes sense. I could get behind that, but, again, I think things have changed, so it'd be nice if we had that money now, though.
Yes, it would. American Rescue Plan.
That's a hot topic on Facebook.
Coleman would like to talk.
Oh, Miss Coleman?
I was just going to say, I agree with the council members in regards to getting people active and supportive and showing them what we need to do with that transportation plan, but the improvement plan. But one thing that I think that we should do, and I was talking to Travis about it, is we should get, if we're going to advertise and put this on the voters pamphlet, we should actually put a link to our website on there and show them what's going on. So when they want to look at what those dollars can do, they'll have a link to go on to our city website, and we'll be able to show them the projects and what we're doing with funding and what the matching dollars on, so they know how much money that we're needing for matching for grants, and they'll be able to look at all our grants, the matching dollars that are needed, and what our budget is, and then they can vote on it that way and be a little bit more educated. So I think when we advertise for putting that out for vote, we should put a web link site on there so they can go and find regular updates of what we're doing. That might be helpful, because we don't get a lot of participation when we have open houses, so on and so forth. We get a handful of people at most, so I think that would be a good way to do it.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. Mr. Boyce, American Rescue Plan.
Okay, so we finally received some Treasury guidance regarding what some of these federal COVID dollars can be used for. We believe the city's in line to get up to 1.4 million. It looks from the Treasury guidance that a number of the things we used the money for last time could be used, could qualify again, which would include grants to businesses, utility relief. So some of those things we used it for are eligible again. There are some differences that include replacing lost public sector revenue. I'm not sure we would qualify for that or not, but there's a formula that we will run and see if the city qualifies for that. We did not really see a dip in sales tax, so I'm speculating that probably wouldn't come into play. Another project within the city that staff has been looking at is the ventilation, heating, cooling, basically the HVAC system at City Hall, which could be upgraded to the tune of, $35,000, I believe Ms. Coleman priced it out at. Also, a change is that water, sewer, and stormwater projects can be eligible for funding. And as you know, Public Works Director Coleman could spend all of that money quite easily as a grant match. We're coming here to City Council to have some discussions about what council priorities might be. And basically we're looking for some direction. Public Works Director Coleman, could you explain, some of the projects you identified?
Sure. Two key projects that we have going on right now, as you guys are all aware. We have that TIB grant funding, which is on West Scott Avenue, and it goes from Pacific to Sherman Way, and it includes crossing the railroad tracks. And one section of that road has asbestos water line in it, and we really need to replace that water line because you don't want to go in and put a brand new road down and then have to go in and tear it up years later when you receive grant dollars for a water line crossing. We also have the crossing that needs to go over the railroad tracks. So same as we're doing on Davidson, we need to do a water line crossing underneath the BNSF railroad tracks. So I've already had engineering done on both of these projects alone, and the water line crossing under the Westcott Avenue is $548,000, which is over $500,000. The water line replacement on Westcott Avenue, which is a little bit, and that isn't even the whole area from Pacific to the railroad tracks, because we have a developer out there that we're going to require them to install part of the water line. So it's only a portion of that, and that water line replacement is $531,000. So right there alone, we have $1.8 million to be able just to do those projects on Westcott. In addition, we have water and sewer lines that need to go in on Insel and Blacktail. We have about 363 feet of that, and we priced that out, and that's about a $230,000 project. That was actually supposed to be part of the Hillshire development. Somehow, this is all obviously before my time, somehow that never got finished and was never completed, and there's no paperwork showing that they are to complete that. So we actually need to loop our system in there, so that's about a $230 bill there. On Fraser Lane, there's about 215 feet of sewer that is on private land. We actually have an easement back behind there. The sewer line is running back behind 3 houses. So in order to pull that sewer line out, abandon it and cap it and bring it out to the road like it's supposed to be, you're looking at about $100,000, anywhere from $70,000 to $130,000. So we figured $100,000 after we did an engineer's estimate on that one. Also on North Goring Street, there's about 475 feet of new sewer line that needs to be put in. That's in the area from Hanson Street to the Oak Tree. That sewer line is old. We run into a multitude of problems with that. We have massive dips in that sewer line. We have roots growing in that sewer line. And so that's about a $400,000 bill. So these are just some top of the iceberg projects that are out there that I know right off the top of my head, and I haven't even looked at the entire city yet. We have pipe that were lined that actually will need to be replaced over time. So these are just some projects that I know that are going on. I would say the most important ones are the water line crossing and the water line replacement on Westcott Avenue, since we have millions of dollars going into these roads. The last thing you want to do is tear these roads up when that water line fails, because we're having brand new roads put in there. So it would be best to do it now, and I think that would be a good use of that money. There's also some other projects that have not anything to do with water or sewer, and that's our police station and emergency operations center. And on that, Travis and I have met, and we talked about upgrading the council chambers in order to better fulfill the hearing and the visual resolution of our council meetings when we have these types of meetings, so you can see every council member, you can hear every council member. So we talked about that. We also talked about some different pod stations and smart whiteboards and TVs going in the corners of council chambers and in that breakout room. So when we have an emergency operations center, that we have areas where we have people meet, and we can communicate with Gallatin and Clark County directly with our own VPN system and database. So with that being said, we've put together a cost of about $50,000 to do both of those items, to complete the emergency operations center and to upgrade council microphones and video. So those are some items that we kind of looked at as well. That's just what we have off the top of our head. Again, I have not gone through both of the capital improvement plans. I will tell you right off the top, we have lift station number 8 that is scheduled to be completed 8 to 10 years down the road, and it's actually need upgrading now. And as you guys know, we put $500,000 into lift station number 5, and lift station 8 needs the same upgrades. We also are having a problem, and Pete and the mayor are aware. I've copied them on the emails with some disposal of sewer out past Walt's Meats. We have lift stations number, I believe it's 2, 3, and 9, and one is fed to the other, and it goes down to 3, which goes to the wastewater plant. 2 of those are in needs of upgrade as well. So you're looking at, $400,000 when you're looking at each of those lift stations. So again, there's so much money that needs to be spent around the city, and it's. I'm not trying to freak you guys out or anything. I'm just trying to tell you that we could spend $1 million all day long for the next, 3 weeks and really put a nice dent in the city. But there's quite a few projects, and everybody is in need of money. And so those are just some items that I had that I can share with you guys and give you some options of what might be available for the funding spending. So.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. Mr. Fredericks?
In this packet, I don't see a list. I know this was just part of a discussion, but is there a list that can be developed that prioritizes some of the things that you've mentioned? In addition, based upon the comments that Ms. Coleman made, would the infrastructure improvements be allowed in council chambers under this plan? Because it just doesn't look like what is not allowed is to fund infrastructure projects outside of water, sewer, and broadband. To me, that would not be allowed under this fund.
Yeah, I'd need to verify that, council member, to see if that could be an eligible use. The justification would be that in times, to get through the COVID issue, we are having to meet remotely. Some of those items may qualify, some may not, but we'll get answers.
And then, is there a time limit on when this money needs to be spent by?
This time around, it's not as rushed. I believe we have, I'll need to verify it, but I believe we have until the end of 2022 to spend these dollars. But I'll need to confirm that date, but it's not as rushed as the CARES Act money was.
Okay. Yeah, I guess from my standpoint, I'd like to see about $1.2 to $1.3 million set aside for infrastructure, with another $100,000 set aside for business grant applications for COVID relief, I guess. And I could be swayed either way on that, but I would like to see a good majority of this be spent on infrastructure.
I should mention as well to City Council that the county, the PUD, and the other cities in the county are talking about forming a group to discuss utility relief and the use of these dollars for that. I've agreed to participate so Woodland can understand what's happening with that group, and I'll keep City Council informed as that progresses. It has not yet, but I anticipate it will fairly soon.
I'm assuming that would be need-based? I mean, not everyone can apply to have relief from their utility bill, correct?
It's so in the plan, nothing's ever totally simple. So if let's say a resident has some past due utility bills, and they live in a census tract that shows the demographics there are below a certain amount of income, the city can unilaterally just award utility relief to that individual. If they're outside that census tract, that can still happen, but additional documentation would need to be produced to show that the person is in arrears due to COVID.
Do we have any visibility to what that may be today, what that looks like today, by looking at those tracks?
That analysis hasn't been done yet. We do know that there are more folks in arrears with utility payments than prior to COVID. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but we have seen an increase in that. We still put liens on properties when the bill gets too high, and we've definitely had an uptick in that in the last year.
Wonderful. Thank you. Everybody agrees with me? Sounds good.
All right.
So, do we
Yeah,
know
oh,
how
go
much,
ahead.
out of the last round, out of the CARES funding, do we know off the top of anybody's head how much went to actual city needs, you know, like
Oh, with,
TV and...
yeah. So I think we received, what, a little over 300,000 total? Is that right, Mr. Boyce? The 2 rounds last time?
Actually, I was thinking it was the $180,000 range.
180?
Okay.
And then we reimbursed ourselves. We did utility relief. The majority of it went back out to the businesses. That's where the majority went.
Yeah, because I remember like the theater got a huge...
Yeah.
Daycare got a huge chunk.
There's a bunch of $5,000 that went out here and there. Tried to help as much as we could with that.
Did anybody, like with the business ones, because it seems like nobody seems to know that council ever approved aid to businesses. Did we like keep a list? I just remember they just kept showing up on
Yeah.
our agendas, but I didn't keep like a running.
Yeah, no, we can get a list together to make sure that if we do that again, or council decides to do it again, we can make sure we're sharing the love.
Okay.
And we're
Yeah,
not
we
doing
definitely
repeats.
have.
Go ahead, Mr. Boyce.
I was just going to say we definitely have a list and the amounts each entity received.
Okay. I just want to make sure that there was, like if we had, after that money was gone, if there was any additional stuff the city had to take on, you know, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, we actually were able to reimburse ourselves with, because we still had a little bit left over, we were able to reimburse ourselves for some of the salaries and things that, here in the PD, that were used during that time too, so.
Oh, yeah, because Chief Kelly was having
Yeah.
to, that's right, okay. So we have something to work off of.
Yeah.
Because I noticed there was like this post on Facebook where it was like, let's tell them what we want to spend it on, and I'm just like, it can, I mean, clearly if you've read it, you can see that you're only allowed to spend this money on certain things. So if you want a barbecue down at Horseshoe for everyone, it doesn't quite pay for that.
Was that a thing?
Everybody gets a check.
Oh, okay.
That was another one. It's like.
Yeah, and according to Facebook, all the relief money just went to our buddies, and we didn't actually give it to real businesses, so.
Well, I am doing a really poor job at this because I only got $200 deposited into my account last month from this gig on the council. So I must be doing something really wrong because I have not figured out how that game works.
Yeah, me either. Yeah, me either.
I mean, I'm down for like all the things.
Well, and we're not rushed this time, and
Yeah.
last time we were so rushed just trying to get it out the door so we didn't lose it, that, I mean, we've got more time to put some stuff
It's
together.
$215.38 for every person living in the city of Woodland approximately.
Woo woo. That's more than we get. Nice.
You're a servant of the people. Mrs. Graham?
Well, and you know, there is, I was, you know, when in the reading of all these pages, you know, and even just now, with it doing your infrastructure, the water, sewer lines and whatnot like that, you're gonna get come back from using it for that. But people don't realize that it is for the safety and the wellness of the whole community. So in a way, everybody is getting a portion of it.
Yeah.
So that's one way to look at it.
It is. Well, and it takes it off our water plan and the sewer rates as well. I mean, if not, we got to pay for it somehow.
We already have enough complaints that our water's not any good.
Mr. Smith.
I ain't dead yet. I've been for a long time, so.
Yeah, right. Mr. Smith.
How many, actually, on behind payments for utility customers applied to have relief on the last
time?
funding?
We had some that denied it. That said, no, I'm not that bad. I'll figure it out. Give it to somebody else. When we were trying to give the money away. We're like, take our money. Just take the money. And there were some that just refused and said, call somebody else. I'm not taking it. So the way that Mr. Boyce explained it would be a little bit easier for some of those folks in some of those demographics, that we could just clean the slate and not have to have them provide documentation. Where in some of the other demographics we would need documentation to prove that it's COVID related.
So it would be better this time to
I think so.
actually be able to help people?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things, if I remember correctly, when people, flipping my hat to Woodland Action, when people came in and asked for utility assistance to Woodland Action, and we referred them back to City Hall, they were told it wasn't set up yet. And then when people needed the help, they couldn't get the help, because I had also applied for a grant through United Way to kind of offset some of that. We'd had a meeting, and people were you guys were talking about how everybody was overdue with their utility bills, so that was one of the things we applied for a grant. So we split it into three things: gas cards, utility assistance, and there was another one, I can't remember what that money could be allocated to. And so we doled it out on overdue utilities. It very regularly, the Woodland Action Treasurer pays people's bills online through the city. But I thought it was interesting that there at the end, it was like, we have to spend this money and nobody will take the money. Well, because previously people tried to get some of the money and there was no system in place. But when the system was put in place, it wasn't announced, hey, we're open, come apply. Or if there was a place on the website, it was some secret hidey place that no one could find. So I think my suggestion, again, going back to marketing, if you're going to have a thing that people can access to offset some of the utility bills, that maybe make it very obvious and put it in places where people know about it. So that, and here's the thing, people are not always, like, pride is a barrier. Pride is a barrier for people to ask for any kind of services. So I think sometimes it's easier for us at Woodland Action, because they're part of our family and we know them, for them to ask us how to get help than for them to call somebody who maybe they used to babysit when they were a kid and say, whoa, I need some help. Because this is a small town, and I don't care what anybody says. Everybody's business gets broadcast, in minutes. It's like the telephone game in Woodland. And so I think sometimes that might be it. And it's not that people weren't necessarily in need of it, but pride is a barrier, and we just have to.
We shouldn't have those stumbling blocks this time.
And I'm hopeful that is the case, because I ran into it where it's like, hey, what about this? And I'm told they don't qualify for certain things, but Mr. Boyce looks into things, and it's like, lo and behold, utility ratepayer, Mr. Boyce said you can get some help, but they've been shut down 2 other times before. So anyway.
Is it to piggyback off what Ms. Holland just said, would it be inappropriate, or would it be allowed to maybe provide that funding to, and we can use the Woodland Action Center as an example, set a certain dollar amount that could be doled out to somebody who could manage that process better than the government can, because government typically isn't very good at that.
Yeah.
Maybe get it into the hands of the people that can,
I could really use that.
that could follow that process and then provide us whatever we need to ensure that we're not in violation of spending the money inappropriately.
Absolutely. Absolutely, we can do that. Absolutely.
I mean, it's just a thought, and obviously I'm assuming that the doling out of this 1.4 million will be the responsibility of staff to provide recommendation, and it will be up to the council to either agree or come up with their own,
Yes.
I guess you could call causes in the community as they see or deem fit, provided they could get a majority of the folks on this body to agree with that decision.
Yes, that's correct. Similar to last time.
I think a lot of the challenge is going to become is how much should be doled out to what, because I stand way on the side of infrastructure in this case with Ms. Coleman, but I could certainly look at doing other things that would make sense to somebody who's hurting because of the pandemic, within reason.
Police levy update.
Hooray!
This is a big one. So we wanted to provide this to you, not so much as a discussion, but more of a, hey, this is where we are, this is where we spent the money, this is what's left in the account. And those of you that participated in Chief Kelly's forum this evening know that there's some expenses that will be coming up towards the end of the year as well. But currently, right now, if you look on that front sheet that's been given to you, expenditures for 2020, there, and our ending balance right now is at $261,501 in the account. And as you go through, you can kind of see where the money was spent. Let's look back here, this one right here. In fact, I just signed a check for a new police vehicle tonight. Where did I see? There's wages and benefits, equipment, things to get the new police officers up and going. We've got Officer Shaka. We also just signed in or swore in Officer Hanning last week. Or is that last week already? 2 weeks ago, maybe it was on
Today's
Thursday.
only Monday.
Yeah, the 2 weeks
so that was money for him. So those two folks, or those two officers, are two of our levy lift money there, and you can kind of see the breakdown of where everything's been going. I think there was some concern from some folks that we were going to do a shell game and we were going to hide it and we were going to spend it on other things, and so this was a way for us to give this to you and say, hey, this is where we are. We still have some reserves, and we're still actively recruiting and trying to hire more folks still. Mr. Fredericks. Oh, Mr. Boyce. Mr. Boyce has something as well. Sorry. Let's go with Mr. Boyce first, and then Mr. Fredericks.
Chief Todd.
Okay, I just wanted to remind everyone that that money can only be used for the 3 additional officers and general police equipment. So that, by law, that's all that money can be used for. I had hoped to have a up-to-date analysis for you. However, with all of the, we just finished our financial annual report, and with the staff changes in the clerk's office, next month we'll be able to have a better analysis for you up to the current date. So be looking for that. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that.
Mr. Fredericks?
As a follow-up to some comments that were made earlier by Ms. Holland regarding marketing, I think we have not done a very good job of marketing what we've done with the tax dollars that we've received from this passage of this levy that passed by a vote of margin of 1. I think it would be appropriate to tell the community through pictures, through social media, through a press release. Hey, wanted to follow up with you as a voter, just let you know, here's what we've done for you, here's who we've hired, here's the new cars, here's the new equipment, here's the new training, this is what our plan is, this is what we've done, and at least put it out there. Because while I appreciate the fact that I'm being provided with this information, I can assure you that this is going to go nowhere further than me, because I have nobody asking me for it. And again, there may not be anybody who is interested, but I think we should give them let's put it out there and say, hey, this is what we're doing. It assures them, it reassures folks that, look what we're doing with this money. It's all for police. These are the steps that we've taken. This is what we've done. Tell the story. And I think we've missed our opportunity to tell that story so far. My hope is that somebody within City Hall decides to tell the story and put it out on a press release. I think that would be really neat. Maybe a communications person, which takes us into our next discussion. Very good segue, Mr. Smith.
Chief Kelly,
Sir,
you have anything to add?
we have been advertising or celebrating our new officers on our Facebook page. So maybe not adequate enough, but we can certainly improve on that always.
Another question.
Mrs. Holland?
So back at the end of last year, I put a little tabby thing in my phone to remind me to ask about sales taxes or property taxes about May-ish, and I emailed Mr. Boyce because I wanted to circle back around, and we're going to have the conversation about the Sally Port cover and how much of this $261,000, if that can be allocated to it. To the, 70K, I think, is the last total on a Sally Port cover, because it does directly benefit those 3 officers? Or does it have to come out of a different fund?
Right, so if City Council made a priority to fund the Sally Port, it could come out of that $261,000. I'd encourage council to leave some in reserve. I know the chief and I have been talking about new legislation that has passed that may require additional equipment for the police department. So I think we need to explore that a little bit more. I'm going to rely on the chief for his guidance on that. But it is something we can look at.
Chief Kelly, do you remember how much your newest quote was for the Sally Port cover?
Well, I'm sure I'd have to update it now with the price of lumber. But back in 2017 or 18, it was $75,000.
Okay.
I'm sure it'd be a considerable amount, and we might want to sit on that for a little while until lumber prices come down, because we are, I think everyone that's in the process of building or remodeling or paying a pretty penny on lumber at this time.
I love how he thinks. Let's wait. From a logging community, which kills me that nobody here can have lumber.
Right.
Because we don't log anymore.
Right.
267%. While you're working, while you're working on that resolution to send to the state legislature, you can put in the unfunded mandates piece.
I will.
Yeah.
That's...
And presumably the $200,000 you have left is through 2020. I'm sure you've spent some money in 2021 that would come off.
We still have benefits and, I'm assuming, benefits and salary for the months of June, July, or June through the end of the year has not been pulled out of that yet. Correct?
Correct. And because we were short-staffed, we couldn't get that number to you today, but we should have it next month.
So even though it says that we've got that, we're still on the hook for some of it right now for the salaries and benefits for this officers, and then any other additional equipment or training that needs to be had due to changes in law.
So, is it unrealistic to, at the end of the year or the first of the year or quarterly, put out like a city newsletter to say, I mean, because that seems more like your style.
I was
Like,
actually thinking about that this morning.
to let
on how
people know, like,
Yeah.
every so often, kind of, here's the update of this is what we've done the last 3 months with your money, and this is what's planned for the year. Because I know, and there's people here that are also part of nonprofit organizations, that it is, donors want to know where their money goes.
Right.
Taxpayers want to know. So, once a year, we send out a newsletter telling people how their money was spent. So it seems like it wouldn't be, I mean, hell, I'm sure somebody in your office could figure out how to put together a little newsletter in Canva,
Yeah.
you know, and whip that out. Just cause I think people deserve to know where their money goes.
And we have in the past put stuff in water bills and broke it down by departments, and this is where we're doing right now, and yeah. Okay. The Voice of Woodland puts it out for us, I think.
No,
Yeah.
it is not on the Voice of Woodland.
Or
It's in that
whatever.
other one.
Whatever's going on out there, I try to stay away from all of it, so my mind doesn't get tainted. But I think they're already doing the newsletter for us.
Something.
May not be accurate information, but it's on the air, so it must be true.
I am highly entertained that what we actually do here, nobody seems to actually watch it. They
No.
just go by, I don't know, never mind. And I lie. I'm apparently a liar.
So I'm hearing celebrate more of this. I'm hearing celebrate more of this and get the word out of where we're spending the money. But thank you for putting this together, Chief and Mr. Boyce. I think it's important that folks see that we still have the money and we didn't hide it somewhere and we're at zero and we're not out having parties on it. So thank you. Let's see here. We've got 23 minutes left, and we need to discuss one last item on here, which is the council manager form of government. Now, some of you may say, why do we need to discuss this? I think that we're at a good time to start discussing this and asking the voters of Woodland to change the form of government that we have here in Woodland. It was shot down many years ago. I came into office in 2016, and while I was campaigning in 2015, made it perfectly clear that no one should be able to walk off the street without any knowledge or experience on how to run a city of our size without professional management. I stood before this council and expressed that, and at the end of 2015, you agreed to, or the members at that time agreed to allot funding to hire a city administrator, which is different than a city manager. We're almost 6 years in now, and I think the time is to have that conversation again. I know that a lot of the conversations surrounded finances and how are we going to pay for it and how are we going to keep track of what's going on. That the mayor normally takes care of the city. Everyone here knows that I'm here on Mondays, and Mr. Boyce is running the city. He runs the city, daily operations, and we're in constant communication, but I'm in the office 1 day a week. The city is set up to have a part-time mayor. And I don't think that that's realistic anymore. Not saying that we're not working full-time hours, but we are. But I think that we've got a pretty good track record right now with professional management with a city administrator. We've found the money. We have been funding that position now for almost 6 years. And I think that we're doing pretty good with it. I really do. And I think that it's time that we start having a serious discussion about changing the way that Woodland does business moving forward.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay. Thank you. Thought you were going to be my holdout. You're the first one to the table, and we're moving on. That was that.
I don't.
She's gonna get one.
I'm over here trying to sell something to you, and I was trying to talk to you.
I
So
do not
do I.
disagree. And
Yeah.
here's the thing. Is
We tried it, right? It's working.
But here's the thing, so the part that I had an issue with, and a lot of people had an issue with, is not Mr. Boyce.
No, I know.
But the cost of the position. And again, it goes back to, you already said no. And here you've just you've just called it something else, and you're doing it anyway. And it's that time, even though, I mean, I get it, and I know Mr. Boyce knows I love him. It's the point. It's the point behind it.
Right.
If you don't have money, and you keep telling me y'all don't have money, don't be spending almost $200K on something if you don't have the money, because it comes from somewhere. And that's, but I do think, realistically, I'm just going to throw this out there, the shenanigans that goes on in this town on a daily basis, Mr. Boyce has the patience of a kindergarten teacher. And you are a really good figurehead, and you're really good with talking people off the ledge of things, and you're really good in that way, and you're really good with communicating with citizens and businesses and voters. But I know for a fact that when you got elected, you're like, whoa, okay, now I'm in charge of $1 bajillion, and then nobody ran against you.
Right.
So
I will say twice, which tells me that we're doing something right the second
there you
time.
go. But they like your smile. But again, it's the more people that come to this community, the more revenue that's going to come in, the more bills are going to go out. And it is wildly naive to assume that Jim Bob, the gas station attendant, won election for the mayor, and now he's in charge of
$1 gazillion.
Right. Because it just, and I know it's always been that way,
Yes.
but imagine, what, hundreds more are coming here. Hundreds more are going to be living here in a couple of years. Hundreds of more voters and bill payers. And it's, the city is outgrew it a long time ago, just in the last couple of years. If you look, it was what, how many people in the last 2 years? It's like, what, 1,200 more people live here in the last, couple of years.
We were just under 6,000, I think, when I took office, and we're over 7 now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just going to grow at an exponential rate.
And I will say before I open it up, because I see there's some other comments that want to be made, there's no way that the team of people and the stuff that is being brought forward, and we've had many discussions about this evening, we talk about infrastructure, we talk about asbestos water lines, we talk about all these things that we've come forward. When I took office, we had lawsuits waged against us from employees and whistleblower claims and all these things. I'm not saying that because we didn't have a city manager that's what's going on, but you have a part-time person running the thing. So how are you supposed to, running the organization as a part-time person? If it wasn't for Mr. Boyce, we would not be in the position that we're in now, which, and I said to him today, I called him Dad. Because I was having a conversation with Tracy, and I said, well, it depends what Dad has to say. Because we have a risk manager that's sitting there at the table saying this isn't a good idea, or you're breaking the rules and you're going to get yourself into trouble. You have somebody
like Mr. Randolph.
And we have Mr. Randolph. We have an amazing team of people, but there's no way that we would be here with this amazing team if it wasn't for the professional manager that's sitting at the table every single day. I wish I could take credit for that, but I can't. I can't do that. I'm just here, like you said, I'm just the figurehead at this point. I mean, I'm making decisions because I have to, but collectively as a team, we're making those decisions, and we have that professional person, a professional in all the departments, guiding the decision that needs to be made as well. And I think that we're already putting things on the ballot, and I think this is a good opportunity to have this conversation to get your take on how you think things are going with professional management, and not Jim Bob from the gas station running things. I think that we've raised the level of professionalism in our city, and I think that we're doing a really good job with it, and we're being fiscally mindful of things as well. Mr. Fredericks? Well, you look like you were going like this before Ms. Holland jumped in.
I don't know, maybe there's other people. Mr. Plaza.
Mr. Plaza.
Very strong feeling.
Shocking. Okay, I would just like to say a couple of things. Yeah, I heard the complaints when we took on a city administrator, although this happened before I came on council, but, you know, I heard people complaining, oh, we shot this down on the vote, and they went ahead and did it anyways. One thing that people need to keep in mind is, okay, what did you get before that happened? We had a mayor, our last mayor, that was a narcissistic, corrupt piece of crap. And then we had the other mayors ahead of that who just wanted to wave at people in the parade. Since Pete came on, since we got a new mayor, we brought in an entire new team that has gotten more stuff done in the last 4 years than I think has gotten done in the previous 11 that I've lived here. So while a lot of people complain about, well, if we just get a city manager, how can somebody that lives outside the city know how to run a city? You need to remember the last few times that we've had people from town run this town, it became the good old boys network, which is something that I constantly hear people complaining about and that we need to get away from. Just because you're from the city doesn't mean you're going to do a good job running the city. And sometimes people who have the experience and the training on how a city needs to be ran, because a city's no different than a business. You know, just because my business is in Woodland doesn't mean I can't hire somebody from Kalama to come in and manage my business for me and get it running more smoothly than Jim Bob. Just because he's got the training and he's got the experience on how to do it. So I definitely think it's a move in the right direction. But then it's going to come down to marketing and educating. So, but I think it can be a very good thing for the city, and I think it would move the city in the direction it needs to go to. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Plaza. Oh, Mr. Fredericks.
Yeah. So I guess I should say, I think the council mayor form of government has worked many, many years in the city of Woodland. So this is nothing against any previous mayor. I believe they all came here with the best interest of trying to make the city a better place. Now, some may disagree with that, but I think most people come with good intentions. Having said that, when I joined the council in 2008, I quickly realized we were in trouble. And I wanted to fix something that I saw was broken. And the council member that I was in 2009 is different than the council member I am in 2021. The council member in 2009 was, let's just do it and get it fixed. Well, given the fact that I did not have a executive branch support for something, and it was an appearance that the mayor and the council were just fighting and we needed to get along, and we did not have the money for it. And truly at the time, we did not have the money for it. It would have been a stretch to figure out how to find the funding for it, but in my eyes, that if it was important enough for the citizens to make this change, then that was the direction that we needed as a body to be able to fund the position. And we would have figured it out. So I was responsible for resolution number 575. And I think it is entirely appropriate that we bring it back. Part of this job is to be visionary in what you do, which means I have to look out 5, 10, 15, 20 years and figure out what is in Woodland's best interest long term. And I have come to the conclusion that it is in Woodland's long-term best interest to change the form of government. And I believe that the staff members that we have up here Look at the team that you've surrounded yourself with. You want to exit and somebody wants to come in here and play SimCity, be the mayor, you can put up a few yard signs and it's amazing how far you can get. And given the fact that nobody has run against you 2 times, that should tell you there's not a lot of willing participants in a community of 6,500 people who are willing to step up and be the part-time mayor. Our citizens, folks that come here that want to do business with the city, staff should expect to have someone who is a professional and understands how city government works. It's not, shouldn't be just left up to somebody like, oh, hey, I feel like I kind of know what I'm doing in my day job. I have no business running the city of Woodland. I would never run for it because A, I don't have the time. I got a job that actually pays my bills. This one doesn't. I told my daughter today how much she asked me, how much is a salary for a city council member? And I told her, and she says, why are you wasting your time? And that was just her, she's looking at it from a time-driven standpoint. And, I gotta say, she's onto something. Took me 13 years to figure it out. I think it's definitely time. We have the position in place. There shall be no additional cost for the remainder. If it were to pass, I believe Mayor Finn would continue on as a member of this council. It would be an 8-member council for the remainder of his term. The council would decide who the mayor is from that, and unless he stays the mayor. I'm not sure how that works. But oh, it's Mr. Boyce.
He's in the PD tonight.
Okay. So again, staff should be expected to be managed by a professional. That you want to keep this crew that we have, because we've done some pretty good things. If you want to keep it, this is the next logical step. If you want to go backwards, unless Mayor Finn's going to be the mayor forever,
I'd like to keep my wife.
Right. So you have to look at it from when you have to plan ahead and realize you may not have someone in that seat down the road that you want in that seat. Because when we give them the license to run the executive branch of government, they are responsible for hiring and firing. I could run. I could say, hey, I've got business experience. I'm going to fire the city administrator. I'm going to save the city $140,000 a year. And that's happened. That's happened in municipalities around the state of Washington. And the aftermath of that is not a pretty sight. And it's very expensive. And so I think that this is the next logical step. And if we have support to get it in front of the voters, and it comes with support from the executive branch of government, which we did not have in 2009. I've never brought it back up, and there were many times where I thought we should abandon the current form of government through the first 8 years of my time on this body. But I never brought it back up because I realized I did not have full support. And if you have full support, it makes sense. If you don't, scrap it. Because if there's internal fighting, it's never going to work. So I think we've come a long way, and I think this would be a good thing for the city, and I think we should have this considered. Again, I worry about our audience, so when we talk about marketing, I worry about whether or not folks are going to look at it as something that's good. It's already baked into the expense, so we're just changing presumably Mr. Boyce's job title, and that the council will be in charge of hiring and firing a city manager. That is a definite change. So the two things on why I thought it was voted down originally was the cost was prohibitive, and the second thing is people like and have a clear understanding of what the three branches of government are: executive, legislative, and courts, judicial. And I think that is something hard for people to get over. I like the three branches of government when you have qualified individual in all three branches. Now, some could argue whether there's competent people on this board. Some could argue, or that maybe our courts are not working properly, or some could suggest that the executive branch is not working. But I think that this is professional. When you have a $20 million budget, you shouldn't get some Joe Blow off the street, all of a sudden you're in charge. And I gotta ask, I guess I would ask Mr. Finn, what would you do if you didn't have Mr. Boyce and you were in charge of running a $20 million organization by yourself, part-time, on Mondays?
We wouldn't be, I've already said that, we wouldn't be in the position we're in now. We wouldn't.
No, and you would not be able to retain the staff that you have, either, in my opinion.
They would have been ran off by a long time ago.
That's just my 3 cents.
Mrs. Rounds?
This will go before, this will be on the ballot, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to have to market it so people understand that it's not going to be any more money out of their pocket, or whatever, but just make sure we do market it so people understand what's going on.
Because you would still be the mayor. It would be like battleground along here.
Well, only, until his term is up.
Well,
I'm essentially asking you, and I know this is an odd thing, but I'm essentially asking you to take away my powers as the mayor, because I think that it's not that I enjoy doing this. I enjoy being here. I enjoy the community. I enjoy helping make decisions and making our community wonderful. But at some point, I think to be the bigger person, I have to take a umbrella view here and say, hold on a second, what we need to move forward even further than where we are right now. I hope I would not just disappear. At least I don't think so, unless they decided that Mrs. Rounds needs to be the mayor after this were to pass, and then I just become a council member.
Reading that you would be appointed as a councilman.
Yes.
If I understand
To finish out his
correctly,
term, right?
if I understand correctly, his title would still be mayor.
Right.
It's just that his duties would be different. Mr. Boyce, or whoever the city manager is, would run the day-to-day stuff.
Oh, he does already?
Right, exactly.
Hey, I'm sitting right here.
And the mayor would be in charge of the council, but
ceremonial.
Yes, he would go to the parades, the groundbreaking ceremonies, and nifty stuff like that.
Ribbon cutting.
But it would also protect the city, because that way, if we end up getting somebody in the mayor's office who shouldn't be in there, then he doesn't have the authority or the power to go around screwing things up.
Such as I do now.
I just remember the first day that I had a conversation when he was on one side of the street and I was on the other. And I was not real happy with it. But...
Yes, me. She's talking about me.
That... We became friends first, and then I could say maybe colleagues now, or understandings from what my life had been and what his life has been, and watching the city grow all these years, for being here forever. There was probably a really good thought that was going to come out of my mouth, but it kind of went by the wayside, I think, that the city has grown. People have got to realize, and there it comes into your marketing, how the city has grown, how the city has evolved through the years. It was, the appliance salesperson was the mayor. The lady that ran the variety store was the mayor. Jim wanted to be mayor, but he was retired. And he was not part-time because I worked and he was down there every day for 8 years at the office, trying to keep on stuff on top of things, and then things started to grow. And it did grow. Unfortunately, I think there was some in between after that and to when Will took over, it probably wasn't done right. There were things that I was very hurt and very unhappy by. And I go a lot by what I feel inside about things. I would have never ever thought to have run and sat on the city council, ever. But there was a feeling inside of me that I was here for a purpose. My purpose has not been very loud and very strong, but I do not have any really thoughts about leaving this circle right now. Simply because of the people that are sitting in the seats for the long right now. And everything is moving forward, and it's okay. It's okay it's okay for me personally not to have to be here anymore. And I just feel that there's a change, and I would hope that people would be open enough and realize that things are they're just flat out, plain out changing, and you have to step up to the plate and take a hold of that and move forward. So, carry on.
Oh, the time is now 10:02. Clerks will accept a motion to extend to 10:10. You want more time than that? Okay. I'd accept to you.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Motion to extend,
Council meeting until 10:10.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Done. 8 minutes. Okay. Anything else? Mr. Smith.
So I'm guessing that this is the direction you're wanting to go since you brought it before us?
It is, because I believe that it's time. I've been having this discussion with Mr. Boyce over the last few weeks, and it's funny, when Mr. Boyce came on, I had said to him, and we were sitting right back here in this room, I said, someday we're going to have a discussion about you becoming the city manager, because I think that's where we're headed. And I just think that we're there now, and I think it's time.
So you would be put on as a voting member of the council
Sure.
after, if it did pass? Is that
Whatever's in the best interest of the city,
Okay.
honestly. That's it. And there's some people that would be out there saying, why are you doing it? You're working yourself out of a job. But it is in the best interest of our taxpayers. It really is, in protecting everything that we have done here and built here. And it's time. It's time that we certify this as a professional management organization.
If I understand right, though, you wouldn't be a voting member on everything. It would remain like it is now. You would be the tiebreaker because you would be chairing the council like you do now. The only difference is that Pete would be in charge of the city. But if I understood the stuff I read correctly, your position on the council as far as votes and stuff wouldn't change. Because it wouldn't make much sense to have 8 people on the council, but who's the tiebreaker at that point?
Right.
So
We'd have to look at that. I haven't even looked into that at all. That's it. I haven't even looked at that to see what would happen to
we're
me.
kind of getting ahead of ourselves because we want to work on it until.
well, if we do our jobs right, it's a good thing to discuss it, because it's what will happen.
What?
something you can find on MRSC.
Well, it's in the paperwork, because I read it someplace. Well, I know I read it someplace. Yeah, anyway.
But nothing changes. I'll tell you that. I think that's the one thing that I think that needs to be the most important. Nothing changes. The team is still in place. The only thing that changes is the name on the door, city manager versus city administrator.
So you're thinking this November's election?
Yes.
And then how much is left in your term?
2 years. 2 years plus end of this year, so 2.5 years.
So I appreciate, as a resident, I appreciate the fact that you recognize the magnitude of all of it.
Thank you.
Because you came to push the ball as far forward as you can carry it, and you realize that's as far as you can carry it. It's got to go to a professional.
Yes.
A professional manager. I mean, as a resident, I really do appreciate that, because it's hard for people to step back and realize that, yeah, I'm not the one. So
Yeah.
Mr. Boyce is really good at his job.
So, yeah, I do have one question for Pete. Do you want that job? Would you be acceptable to that?
I sure do want that job.
Good deal. I had to, I'll sleep better tonight.
Comes with a 20% pay decrease.
Did you hear?
No, you get Will's extra $800.
Yeah, there you go. Jeez.
Oh, 6, because you'll be getting 2 as a council.
Yeah, let's do it right.
Sorry.
Yeah, see, work myself out of power and money. Isn't that what this is all about? Power and money?
It totally is. Do you know how many people thought, asked before they ran for this last final thing? How much do you get? And when you tell them, they're like, oh. It's like, what did you think?
Yeah, no shit. Well, I remember my first year, folks thought that I was making the same as my as the previous administration at $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just saying, they thought that I was bringing home that much, and I was like, no. I do it because I love it here.
I'm sorry.
We've come to that moment of the meeting for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Councilmember Frederick, second by Councilmember Smith. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? At the pool, you guys.
Is that right? I think I'm previewing that it's over, but I think I was supposed to get,
Why is there no training? Why is there
it says something like stop and then